coming up next, a most lovely lady. So I would love you all to really engage again in, we're welcoming this time Angela James. You'll see Angela is looking gorgeous here with her background as well. And Angela is coming to us from South Africa. And she is the founder of angelajames.com. She is a multidimensional intuitive, facilitator, and storyteller. And Angela's going to talk to us about the values of Ubuntu, the foundation of sustainable and conscious living. I'm excited to hear more. So thank you so much, Angela.
Hi, and thank you, Tracy, so much for your introduction, for your wonderful, wonderful presentation this afternoon, and also to Milan. I'd also just like to take the opportunity to congratulate Milan and the team from Values and Volunteerism from the G100, but in particular, Milan, with all the amount of work that she's put into making this summit a success. So I am an African. I'm not just a South African, I'm also an African. And Africa has a charm and a wonder all of its own. But Africa also has a concept called Ubuntu. And when we focus on Ubuntu, we focus on the fact that, and if we take it in the Nguni language, Umuntu, Ngamuntu, Ngabantu, which means, and it is not the true depth of the meaning, but it means a person is a person through other persons. We affirm our humanity when we acknowledge that of others. And if we go back to what Milan was talking about during her opening, for me, one of the golden threads that when we start to live in a world filled with values and filled with the essence of what volunteerism actually means, because I don't believe that in African culture there is such a thing as volunteerism. It's a way of life. It's not a formal program. It's the way in which the African traditions of Ubuntu are actually embroiled and embedded into their society. So to translate it a little bit more, it's I am because of you. So if I put this into the literal sense of where we are today and what we're focusing on today, is that I do not exist without you. This summit would not be happening without the people who are here in the Zoom room, making it possible for a message to be carried. I am because of the people that I counsel. I am because of the people that I work in terms of workshops. So my very existence is legitimized by other people. And then when we focus on that, what is it that I am doing to be able to intertwine myself with the rest of humanity? And how is humanity, with its reciprocity, doing the same with and for me? It is a traditional African philosophy that offers an understanding of ourselves in relation to the world in which we are a part and the world in which we live. And in so saying, it means that I am not alone. I'm not an island on this planet. I am part of an interconnected whole. And when we focus on what that means, it starts to really resonate with the energies of the collective, the energies of coming together, the energies, and you'll see now with some of the values as we talk about it, cooperation. Again, Milan was talking during her opening about compassion, empathy, connection, community. But it also has a very deep spiritual undertone to it as well. Or maybe it's not such an undertone. And again, please feel free to type your comments in the chat as we're going along, and any questions as well. And how much this is also resonating for you. And we'd love to hear your comments. So Ubuntu also focuses on respect, dignity, personhood, and it's the golden thread, the virtues of dignity and that which we find in social relationships and practices. And in fact, something that is pretty sad in terms of the modern world that we are living in at the moment, and with the influx of westernization into it, but specifically into Africa, and this is not putting kind of a story at people's doors, but there's a lot of the Western influence that's coming in where a lot of people are losing touch with this incredibly beautiful philosophy. And it is more than that. It is a common bond that exists between us, through us, and it is all around how we interact and engage as fellow human beings. In your humanness, I discover my own. In your humanness, you discover, or in my humanness, you discover yours. And so there's a beautiful reciprocity and a beautiful dance between the way we engage with this philosophy. And were it that this philosophy became more and more part of the leadership and the way in which we lead, we would probably be having very different conversations. It also has a very deep spiritual energy, and its teachings have lived on for centuries. It has been conveyed through the oral tradition, being passed down from generation to generation to generation, much in the same vein as many of the indigenous cultures around the world, much in the same vein as one that's very close to my heart, and that's the Native American Indian culture. The two cultures are incredibly similar, and they know how to live sustainably. They know how to live beyond the energy of the greed, of the more, of the there's not enough, the energy of scarcity. They have a deep respect for the earth, for the resources, for all life forms that live on the planet. And again, it brings us into raising our consciousness to a different level. So when we focus on, I've mentioned that it's carried from one generation to a generation, but it's also underpinning that are the deep values that are entrenched within Ubuntu and the Ubuntu teachings. So what are some of the things that it really focuses on? Because we can talk about a philosophy, but how does it actually work? Well, it focuses on equality and the dignity of people and how we bring dignity to people. And the interesting part about this is if we look at the very turbulent history, not only of South Africa, but also Africa, part of this is normalizing back into connecting with, on the one hand, this deep and beautiful spiritual teaching. There's the emphasis on humanist brother and sisterhood, and the connection that we have to humankind. It values life as sacred, and it is the most desirable state of human life and living. So let's have a look at some of the values. Some of these values, when we start to focus on them, humanness is understanding the problems and suffering of others, which for me is also linking very closely to the Buddhist and Buddhist teachings, the way in which we are considerate and kind-hearted. And this is the way in which people and the environment are treated. So even the earth is treated as a living human being and organism, and all who walk upon her. The next value that we come into is the value of caring. Because how a person treats themselves is how they also treat others. How parents treat their children, how children behave towards their parents, how married spouses deal with each other. We're dealing with gender-based violence on unprecedented levels around the world. And part of that is the fabric, and you'll see the fabric of how the level of caring in our world is just being dissipated by so much. And again, this is not putting it at anybody's door, this is not a gender bashing thing either. It's just part and parcel of how society fragments itself, and it is about bringing caring back in to repair all of the damage that's been caused by that fragmentation. It's also how we treat the aged, and how many of the aged are put out to pasture or kind of sidelined as they get older, the underprivileged, those with learning difficulties. Caring is the way in which we show how people deal with one another. Sharing is the next value. Giving something, whether it is your time. Here we come with this is a natural part of the African culture. We would call it volunteerism. They call it and refer to it as sharing. Giving something, whether it is your time, whether it is resources, physical objects, without expecting anything in return. There's a gifting to it. There's not an expectation that is tied that I will get something back. And this is at the very heart of volunteerism. In Ubuntu, it is almost as though the things that we have as individuals also become a part of the extended community. There is a very different view of ownership within this culture as there is within Western culture. We then move on to respect. And this is all about goodwill. It's about acceptance that the person earns from others. It's related to discipline, to law, to order, and it covers the rules of government, relationships, structures, and society and communities. And also the authority that the elders have over the young. And again, that's one of the things in a disfragmented society that we're starting to see less and less of, where there is the respect and the honor of the elders within our world. One of the things that that Ubuntu also places a very, very strong and very heavy emphasis on, and that is education. Their education is holistic, it's interdependent, it's social, it's cultural, it links to religions, it links to politics, economics, And it is all about and geared to assisting young people to become productive members of their communities, adding their gifts and talents into the strengthening of the whole. And so a very holistic approach to education and how education actually works in the world. And so when we come to really consider the impact that Ubuntu has, I think it was Bishop Tutu, although the quote here is from Nelson Mandela, it was Bishop Tutu who actually said, Africa, not only has Africa's time come, but Ubuntu is Africa's gift to the world. It is this thing that we call Ubuntu that expresses the very humanness and humanity of who we are that becomes the foundation for values-driven life, living and loving. In the words of Nelson Mandela, a traveler through our country would stop at a village. He didn't have to ask for food or for water. Once he stops, people give him food and entertain him. That is one aspect only of Ubuntu, but Ubuntu has very many aspects. Ubuntu does not mean that people should not address themselves. The question, therefore, is, are you going to do so in order to enable the community around you to improve? And so we focus on the energy of what it is that we can do and what it is that we can contribute. And when we are in touch with what our own values are, and when they align with teachings such as Ubuntu, the teachings of the higher consciousness, teachings of order, it is then that we come into alignment and contribute to a world that will be better off for us having been in it. So I'd like to also link this to the Native American Indian philosophy and teachings of the 7 generations. It is a prophecy that comes from the Lakota, and its focus is that whatever we do now, whatever action we take, whatever thoughts we bring into the world, however we treat ourselves on the earth will impact for the next 7 generations. And it is my belief that if we go back 70, on an average of 70 years, 7 times 7 generations and lifetimes ago, we come to the point where the Western world colonized most of the world that wasn't colonized. And we are the tipping point generation, the 7th generation that is here to leave a legacy for the next 7 generations. What generation is it that we are wanting to leave behind us? And what contribution can we make in terms of bringing in values, that energy and sense of service, that energy and sense of being for others? The values and philosophy of Ubuntu form a web and the foundation for conscious and sustainable living. Umuntu, Ngumuntu, Ngubantu. I am because of you. My humanity is intertwined with your humanity. Are you going to address yourself, adopt and live the Ubuntu values, so in order to enable the community and the world around you improve? And that's the question that Nelson Mandela left with all of us. For it wasn't about him and who he was. He was more concerned about the fact that we picked up the mantle and that we took his life, his learning, his legacy in our own small way and contributed that to the world. So my name is Angela Gale James. I am the founder and multidimensional facilitator, intuitive teacher, and business confidant at angelagalejames.com. And I have thoroughly enjoyed being a part of the summit today. And again, I would like to wish Milan a huge big thank you for all the hard work that she's put into this, together with those who've been of service in bringing the summit together. I hope you enjoy the rest of the summit and that everybody takes some value away from each one of the speakers that we get to hear and engage with through the next 2 days. Thank you so much for having me. And Tracy, thank you for the lovely introduction. And that's me.
Thank you so much, Angela. That was wonderful. And it was